Shall we begin? Yes, we shall. Thank you everybody for coming. So Digital Real Estate Marketing Bootcamp, how many of you attended this when I first had this session in October? Nobody? Nobody? All brand new? So for those of you attending today, what does digital real estate marketing mean? What do you think it means?
Instagram.
Instagram? Okay, what else? Facebook? Isn't that like social media?
Video?
We'll be talking a bit about social media as a component too.
I think BombBomb that you use a lot in the digital world. Like,
Mhm.
I mean,
That's part of it, yeah. What else?
anything not in print.
Anything that's not in print? Somebody was saying something?
Just said YouTube and Google Ads.
YouTube, all of that. So we're going to touch a bit about all of these. I mean, we have a 2-hour session here. And the first part of it, I'm going to go through a couple of more theory and concepts about it. And then in the latter part of this, we're actually going to pick one of you volunteers. We're going to create an actual digital real estate marketing system for you. How does that sound? So you've got to be willing to come up, willing to share, willing to be on camera because you are going to shoot a video. So whoever that person or the lucky person is going to be, that's what you have in store for you. Right? Let's see if this works. All right. So what's our biggest challenge going into real estate in 2019? What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
Getting buyers, sellers.
Getting buyers, getting clients, right? What else? It's always a challenge. What's your biggest challenge?
Getting attention.
Getting attention.
Standing out, I guess.
Standing out. What else?
Showcasing how you're going to be different.
Showcasing how you're going to be different, which is your unique selling proposition. How do you differentiate yourself? What else? It's a crowded environment, right? So 2018 has been challenging for not only us, but for a lot of agents out there. We're entering into another challenging year where we have opportunities, but at the same time, we don't know where the market is going. I mean, well, some of us have an idea where the market is going, but at the same time, our clients or our prospects that we're going to be working with, the consumers out there, they need clarity, right? Now, part of it is there's a lot of noise. There's a big crowd out there. There's how many realtors on the Toronto Real Estate Board right now? Too many. It has, right? There's too many. 54,000, right? It's a lot, right? And a lot of you are pretty much thinking this year, probably, in terms of your marketing strategies, what's going to set you apart? What's going to make you unique, right? What's going to get you out there so that you can connect with potential clients, potential buyers and sellers who you're going to make a difference and an impact to in their life, right? And differentiation is a big factor. So on the screen, you see several brands, right? You see several, some of them you may know, some of them you may not know. Some of them are coming from the US to Canada. Recently, a Canadian or Toronto brokerage has gone down to the US, right? And this is just a small selection of it. Of course, the biggest and most recognized brand being RE/MAX, right? Which, for you in terms of your marketing, not only just your traditional marketing, but also for digital real estate marketing, makes a big difference that you're affiliated with a recognizable brand. Because when you're out there in the noise, right, and there's a big crowd of agents out there competing for business, having that brand behind you makes a big difference. Now, I'm not being a billboard for RE/MAX. That's the reason why I'm plugging it in. I'm just saying that when you're doing any kind of marketing strategy, you've got to leverage the tools and the resources that are available for you, right, to use. And being part of RE/MAX, and in fact, RE/MAX Hallmark is one of those key differentiating factors. How many of you have know every single one of these companies whose logo is up here? Which ones haven't you heard? FIDA's a funny one. So a couple of years ago, there was a couple who got publicized in the newspaper where they created this service because they weren't really happy with the way listing presentations were going on for realtors. And in fact, what they just wanted to do was find the best value. And when I say value, it's pretty much the cheapest realtor who's willing to do the job at the lowest price. So you heard Shank here earlier talking about his experiences with some of the realtors that he dealt with when he was buying and selling his place. Well, FIDA, if you go to it, is basically a reverse auction system where who wins? The person who bids the highest or the person who bids the lowest? The lowest. So when you're bidding for the lowest price, what happens when it comes down to real estate being what you're bidding on in terms of a listing service? So what's a typical listing commission? 5% full, right? 2.5 to cooperating, 2.5 to the listing agent. What happens if you're bidding the listing portion of that commission downwards?
Quality goes down.
Quality goes down. What else? Services go down, right? So when you define your value, when you're actually reducing the amount of listing commission that you're charging, are you delivering more value or delivering less value? Less, right? So FEDUC is actually a service where, you know, a potential homeowner, a homeowner's potential seller will go on there and say, hey, why don't you all bid for my listing? And then of course, it'll go down 0.5, 0.25, point whatever, or you know, you get to the point where realtors are probably going to start paying to get these listings, right? That's what FEDUC is. Right now, I monitor all of these different things, and you know, once in a while there is an auction on FEDUC. But why do these you know, avenues of marketing exist, or why do these companies exist? It's because we're not doing as great of a job as we should be in terms of connecting with clients and making them aware of our services. If a service such as FEDUC reaches your client before you do, or your prospect before you do, then you're not doing your job at reaching out to them. Whether it's proactively reaching out to them, whether it's keeping in touch with your clients, keeping your clients satisfied, and having an overall great real estate experience, right? What other companies haven't you heard of? Redfin. So a couple of days ago or a week ago, there was an announcement that Redfin is coming to Canada. And in fact, the two markets that they're entering in Canada this spring are Toronto and Vancouver. Redfin is a brokerage model in the United States that is based on discounted listing commissions and whatnot. And it is a data-driven or statistics-driven company where they draw, like they've been using Soul data there for the longest time, just like what Zillow's been doing. But Redfin hires realtors as employees. You and I know that you are not employees here. If you were employees of a regular 9-to-5 job, you think you'd be fired by now, based on your activities? I'm kidding, I'm joking. You answer that for yourself. I asked that question and half the room got it. But anyway, Redfin is hiring realtors as an employee model as opposed to, what are you guys? Independent contractors, which is why we can't fire you, technically speaking. But Redfin hires employees and pretty much pays them on a salaried basis plus a bonus base based on their customer service experience, based on what their clients rate them, etc. Right? So this has been successful in the U.S. They only have a small market share, maybe 1 or 2%, but in the U.S. that's like $26 billion or something like that. Can somebody verify that figure? Either 2.6 or 26 billion, something big, right? So coming up to here, they're going to be tackling on the biggest Canadian cities, right? Yes?
Didn't we have another company that was doing that exact same thing, but they went under?
There you go. Which company was that?
That's what I remember the name.
Redfin, right? So the Redfin had that model, right? So Redfin and Redfin are two different models, right? I actually know employees who very early on had joined Redfin, right? We're salaried, making a pretty good salary, making a pretty good bonus in commission. And as they started adding realtors, of course, the number of leads that they started to receive started to go down, right? So in the employee model, which is different from our model, and we'll talk about what our model is, what's the biggest disadvantage to hiring an employee?
Well, they don't have to produce.
They don't have to produce, right? Of course, you get fired if you don't produce. Unlike here, when if you, that's a different story, right? But an employee doesn't have to produce, technically speaking, right? And they're competing against us. What do you consider yourselves? Professionals?
Producers?
Producers? Leaders?
Business people.
Business people. You are all entrepreneurs, right? The moment you stop doing any of your activities, you have no business, you have no revenue. You are technically business owners who are entrepreneurial, right? The moment you join RE/MAX, the moment you join real estate and got your license, right, you realize that the license you have isn't really a license to print money, is it? Right? It's a license to compete in our business, where you are competing as business owners, as entrepreneurs, and you are leading each other or competing against each other in terms of your value proposition, your service offerings, your innovation, right? The different service packages and plans and experiences that you provide to your clients. We are entrepreneurial in our business, right? And as small business owners, we have to have very sound strategies as far as marketing is concerned, as far as our business operations, our finances are concerned. And that's why we've been leading the way in terms of business planning for this year, right? So when you're competing against employees, who do you think has more skin in the game? Somebody who gets paid a salary, or somebody like you who has to earn their commission,
Oh.
right? So we've got to have that entrepreneurial spirit and that fire alive, especially in the years to come. What other companies haven't you heard about here? Purple Bricks, they pretty much bought Comfree, and you know what Comfree is,
Yeah,
Oh,
right?
they bought Comfree.
They bought Comfree.
And is
So
that in the last month? Because you see all their advertising
Yes.
on TV now.
So
Yeah.
Purple Bricks was from the UK. They purchased Comfree
They're
here
a
in
big,
Canada.
big
Yeah.
company in the UK.
Huge company.
They have a lot more backing than we've seen other companies or similar companies with.
So they're on breakfast television commercials now in the morning.
Facebook,
And,
I've seen
people
Facebook
leave.
ads just in the last week.
Mhm. So you've got to be mindful. I mean, this is who you're competing with. And this climate is going to continue to change in spite of a challenging real estate market. No matter what transitions happen in the market this year and in the years to come, you've got to be aware of your competitors, right?
But Purple Brick, it's interesting because I don't know if they switched up their. I think they have their campaign coming from the States
Mhm.
because they have some U.S. agents.
Yes.
But when you go onto their site, it says that they have full service agents helping you,
Yes.
and yet they don't.
Yes. So it's a bit misleading,
It's
right? So
very misleading because as soon as you click on for a seller's agent, it goes to the States.
mhm.
And I think, was Comfree not also doing buyer's agents?
So Comfree was, if you opted for a full service, if you will, you do have access to a licensed agent who would be able to help you with the process, right?
Of,
Now, how involved?
Of buying,
Of buying
and,
and
yeah,
selling.
as buying, and that they were
Yes.
gonna give you a percentage
Mhm.
of, which is actually, when you think about it, is really a dog fee,
That's bird dog fee technically,
you
right?
know?
I mean, if you are a party to transaction, that's okay, right? So if you're kicking back to a buyer or a seller who is a direct party to the transaction, it's fine. If
But-
it's somebody who's outside,
But
then it
there's
is
actually,
something.
the agents don't go with the buyer.
Mhm.
They actually send the buyer out,
Uh-huh.
and then they'll drop the offer,
Mhm.
is what they're doing.
Right. Well, there's a whole bunch. The point being, thanks for that input. The whole point being, there's a whole bunch of different business models out there. What you've got to decide as we talk about our digital real estate marketing strategies is what is your business model and how are you communicating it to your clients? Because again, what this is going to be is a battle for attention. Who is going to be reaching out to potential buyers or sellers first? Is it going to be one of these guys or is it going to be you? And what are you going to be doing about it differently in terms of your marketing proposition? So here's 3 questions that we've got to ask ourselves. And this is something you can write down if you have, your notebooks or your phones or your laptops, whatever you want to write on. What is your primary objective? You see, for whatever reason, when I took on a management position here, I became known as the social media guy. I don't know how that happened, but everybody with Facebook and social, and Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube questions all came to me, right? So my biggest thing that I've noticed over the past 2 years that I've been working in a management role is that a lot of us want to get into something just for the sake of doing it because it's cool or it's really interesting or because they heard somebody else doing it or they see somebody else doing it. Is that right? The thing that's been lacking in a lot of the approaches that we're taking is we don't have a clear objective as to what we want to achieve. So yeah, I want to post a couple of pictures on Facebook. Why? I don't know, right? Just because everybody else is doing it. I want to create a Facebook business page. Why? Because this person did it too. Right? I want to go on Instagram and I want to shoot videos and do Insta stories and all that stuff. Why? Right? So to have a clear digital real estate marketing strategy, and for your marketing strategy in general, right, with your traditional marketing that you do, you've got to have an objective. If you have no idea what your objective is, then no matter what kind of tools and fun and cool stuff you get to play with, it's not going to serve any purpose for you because you're just putting a whole bunch of stuff together, right? So have a clear primary objective and ask yourself this question: what do I want to achieve? If I do this, what do I want to get out of it? And of course, everybody can say, I want to generate sales. Okay, that's great. But then you've got to work through that, that pipeline, right? That entire process. How do you get that sale? You got to be working with potential buyers and sellers. How do you get those buyers and sellers? You got to be able to do certain things. And how do you do those certain things? Well, we're going to answer those questions in a bit. But what are you currently doing about it? So you've got a primary objective, which I hope isn't just as vague as I want to generate sales. I want it to be something specific, right? And we're going to go through this activity as we go along. But if you do have a primary objective for your marketing, whether it's traditional or digital, what are you currently doing about it, right? Do you have a plan in place for 2019? Right? In late 2018, while you were doing your business planning for this year, did you put together a marketing plan of some sort? Right? Marketing includes a lot of different activities, such as your prospecting, such as your cold calls or warm calls, following up with your clients, creating landing pages and websites, thinking about what kind of Facebook ads you're running, or thinking about your client events. What are you currently doing in order for you to be able to achieve your primary objective in marketing? Number 3, what challenges are you currently facing? Right? So in a crowded marketplace, there's going to be a lot of competition. How do I differentiate myself from somebody else? Right? How do I beat somebody who's doing commission cutting or selling a completely different value proposition for a lot lower than I am? Right? What are the different challenges you're currently facing? Does anybody want to share? If you have an objective, no?
I actually would be willing to share. I find it kind of challenging because as agents we're presented with so many tools, so many logins, so many different resources,
Yes.
and it's like hard to keep track to the point where it's almost like I don't even know where to go to find what I'm looking for because I'm constantly inundated and bombarded with logins and
Right.
different resources and BombBomb and MailChimp and
Yes.
different CRMs. Like where do you even begin?
It's just
How
there's
do
so
you
much
know?
stuff,
Yeah.
and you're probably talking about Remax as well. Because yes, Remax is great because it has so many tools, but at the same time, if you can't decipher what those tools do, then it's going to be very difficult for you to achieve what you want. So that's why we created Hallmark Hub. That was one of the ideas in order for us to be able to sort out which tools. But even still, you go in there and it's like you're opening up a safe, and inside that safe is a massive collection of amazing tools that you can use. But what do you use? What do you ignore? Which ones are going to help you out this year, and which ones should you not spend too much time on? Absolutely. Yeah.
I think basically you have to determine who is your market. You have to be specific about the type of clientele you're either wanting to attract or that you're directing yourself to.
That's right.
And by that platform, that's where you go out and start determining, is that Instagram, is that Facebook, is that whatever. And then fine tune in those directions first before you start engulfing too much.
Absolutely.
Because it's so overwhelming.
It's not exactly.
It's mind blowing.
It's mind-blowing. It's not the other way around. It's not, okay, let me play around with this because I think this is where it's going to be. You've got to identify, who's it you're trying to reach, right? And then where are those people? Now, you may not, the good news for you in 2019 is you may not need to be on Facebook or Instagram or social media whatsoever. And we all know agents who are successful, irregardless of the fact that they have no social media presence whatsoever. And we know some agents who are like on all of these things, but they're not doing as well. So, you've got to be able to connect with your audience and find out where they are. Does anybody else want to share before we go on?
We found it really helpful in the past to write a target profile. So we think about who it is we're speaking to, and then we write a profile on that specific type of person or couple or whatever it's going to be. And then we kind of go from there. Where would those people be? How do we reach them? Kind of work it back from defining who your target is.
Right. So Doug, you've got an advertising and marketing background. Advertising marketing background. So if ever you want to reach out and pick Doug's brain about it, like he's very, very skillful at this. But absolutely, as realtors, we're not necessarily marketing or advertising people, right? And we start to, we see somebody send out a really neat flyer and says, it says, guaranteed home sold or I'll buy it, and then we say, hey, that sounds like a neat tagline. Let me copy that too. Meanwhile, you have no idea how to execute on that. Or you see somebody with a 1.5% commission. Okay, let me do listings at $9.99. And I'm referencing Brampton here, right? It's true, right? So then what does that create, right? So let's talk about now what is the definition of digital marketing. Digital marketing is the marketing of products or services using digital technologies, mainly on the internet, but also including mobile phones, display advertising, any other digital medium. This was somebody said this really brilliantly earlier, which is pretty much anything that's digital, right? Anything that's digital in terms of marketing is what digital real estate marketing is all about. So how do you reach somebody on their mobile phone, on their iPads or tablets or on their laptop while they're browsing certain websites or while they're browsing social media sites and all that sort of thing, right? So as we build out our digital real estate marketing system for today, which I've simplified a lot of this stuff. So if you want theory for marketing and advertising, you know, go to the source, right? Pick up a marketing textbook, right? But today I'm going to be simplifying a lot of these concepts and theories and processes so that we can actually build something out that works for you. And the system that we're talking about is something that I've actually used myself in the past and what I've coached several of our agents to use as well, right? So what we're going to do is focus on 3 E's. Number 1 is earn, right? Now this is not going to be life-changing stuff. It's more so common sense stuff that we should know, but when we think about it, we're kind of not really putting through the process of properly identifying who is our target audience, right? So the earn part of this is, you know, how do you earn the attention of your target audience, provided you know who your target audience is, right? So as Doug said, it's good to do a profile. Right? What is a market profile or a customer or client profile? You're pretty much imagining who is that client, you know, where do they live, what do they like to do, you know, how many kids do they have, or, you know, what are their hobbies, what do they like to spend their time doing, you know, where do they shop, what kind of car do they drive, what kind of clothes do they wear. You're pretty much creating what's called an avatar, right? An avatar is pretty much who is that potential client you're trying to reach. And in being able to do that, you're going to be able to identify how to earn their attention, right? Engage. Once you know who you're trying to reach, you've got to create some sort of a process or a platform where you're going to be engaging them in some sort of a dialogue, right? So a lot of, you know, not just real estate agents, but a lot of business people, why they fail is that they start to create a message and start to create that dialogue, but they have no idea who the avatar or who that client profile is. So then what happens? The message doesn't resonate with the customer or the client, right? Same thing with you. If you start putting a random message out there without thinking through who you're trying to reach, it's not going to be able to speak specifically to a specific audience, right? And you heard about this pretty much. One of the biggest failures in terms of marketing or communication that we do is you try to be everything to everybody, right? And when your message is very generic, it's everything to everybody, who are you going to be able to attract? Nobody, right? Versus if you have a specific message catered towards a specific audience and you read everybody else out, you'll be able to have more impact with that message. Empower. Once you've engaged somebody in dialogue, and we'll get to your question, you got to empower them to make a decision, to be able to utilize your services or to interact with you or to be able to get them to avail of what it is that you have to offer. Yes?
My question is, how do you do that when your client could be a first-time buyer, they could be people downsizing, and everyone in between? So
Yes.
do you say, okay, I'm just going to focus on one of those categories, or I'm going to focus on people who are like me, who like things that I like to do? How do you...
Yeah, so how do you narrow down? Like, do you do several different messages to attract different audiences, or, you know, how do you do that? What do you think? What do you guys think?
I think
Anybody?
it's not bad to do like a target for several different categories of people that you're looking at doing, right?
Yes.
So it'll just take more time, and it kind of feels limiting a little bit because you're focusing so much on like one particular category of person, then you move on to the next.
That's right.
And yeah, so I guess that's a bit frustrating too because you can only do so much. You only have so many hours in a day.
That's right. So, I mean, when you look at successful realtors, some of them have a very specific area that they work in, right? So their target audience is, you know, residents of this area. Now, when you look at them, do they exist anywhere else in the GTA? When you look at really the top realtors in their specific neighborhoods, they're unheard of, right? So if you're in the West End, you know Sam McDaddy's name, but when you're in Durham, you have no idea, like, for the most part, unless you're in real estate, the people who live there have no idea who he is, right? And vice versa. You hear about, you know, Michelle Fraser in Durham, but if you go to Brampton, nobody knows who she is, right? And there's a lot of different examples within our company of agents who exist in their neighborhoods and that dominate it, right? But that's an example of targeting by geographic, that's a geographic target strategy basically, right? But the target audience or the avatar or the client profile is somebody who lives in a particular area, right? So now, Ashley said, what about a first-time buyer, right? Could that be a potential target? And the answer is absolutely. So when you're creating a campaign online, think about this. You run a Facebook ad campaign and it's, buy, sell, rent, invest through me. I do everything. I sell you condo downtown. I'll sell you, Brampton house. I'll sell you $1 million house. I'll sell a mobile home, right? Because you want to get everybody. And if you look at the flyers that are out there, isn't that what all the realtors are doing? They're pretty much, and I guarantee, buy, sell, rent, invest. Look at how many flyers have that. What does that mean? What does that mean to me, right? So if it's a first-time buyer, what would you do? What kind of a target, what kind of a message would you put on that particular campaign? It'd be very specific compared to somebody who's downsizing, right? But if your message is, sell your home through me, of course you're trying to get everybody, but you may not resonate with somebody because that specific problem a first-time buyer is facing might be a different challenge that somebody who's downsizing a home is facing. And when you create a message that's very specific to one or the other, right, you're going to be able to attract that person because it's going to resonate. So think about the marketing and the advertising that you face yourselves, right, on a daily basis. And then think of the messages that have been very specific to solving one of your problems. And then how you reacted to that versus generic advertising that's out there. There's a ton of stuff, tons of materials that we face every single day in terms of advertising. You drive by, you go home today, and just watch how many different messages or different things are trying to reach out at you, right? So yes, it does get challenging when you've got multiple different target segments to attract. But at the same time, if you try to be everything to everybody, it's not going to be as strong as a message as if you try to be something specific.
We'll try to work out to primary and secondary, sometimes a tertiary, but depending on the property or depending on what we're trying to do.
Exactly. Yeah, focus on 1, 2, or 3.
Different messages, absolutely, for those different groups.
Yeah. Same with your prospecting or business building activities. You don't do physical open house, door knock, cold call, client. You don't do all of those activities all at once, do you? You usually have 2 or 3 maybe activities that you focus on, one being you steer and then 2 others that you are very strong at, right? Could you imagine if you tried to master every single part of real estate prospecting activities, right? Same thing. Yes?
And then you've also got to determine not where the money is, but the direction of the market.
Mm-hmm.
You want to prepare yourself if you know that it's going to turn to a seller's market, not so much a buyer's market, to be constantly focusing all your energy in a market stream towards buyers when you're going to be running around doing a lot of showings and being competitive market all the time.
Exactly.
So you want to be able to leverage yourself in a way that you don't put all your eggs in one basket, but you choose your baskets very carefully on the direction that you think the market is going to be going.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know what? I'm going to bring it back a couple of slides. And when you look at this, and you look at Purple Bricks, which used to be COG-free, who's their target audience?
Sellers.
Specifically.
Cheap sellers.
Cheap sellers,
Yeah.
right? Who don't want to pay a lot of money,
Not professional
right?
people.
So does this look like cheap sellers who don't want to pay money? What does RE/MAX stand for?
Professional.
Professional full service, right? Full service, right? When you look at this, I mean, look. Would you log on to a website like that selling your $1 million house or even your $800,000 house, right? And say, hey, I want a FEDUC agent to bid so that, you know what I'm trying to say? Yet each and every single one of these does have their own target audience, right? Target market, right? So we have to know where we're at in terms of this and then what our marketing strategy is and what our message is, right? Now, we're going to build something today, right? So after I'm done these slides, we'll take a 5-10 minute break because the second part of this will be very hands-on, right? And I know that there's a couple of you taking pictures. Don't worry, I'll give you the slides. We're going to be building a system that uses this earn, engage, empower system, right? Essentially, there's a lot of different ways to attract based on your marketing objective, what it is that you, what kind of a message that you want to send out. You can use postcards, paid social media ads, paid search ads, SEO, neighborhood newsletters, events, that sort of thing, to earn the attention of your audience, right? So basically how we're going to engage them, and we're going to be focusing a lot on this part today, is we're going to be creating landing pages, email campaigns, and we're going to be talking about content marketing. How many of you created your MailChimp campaign, MailChimp accounts, which is free? You can use pretty much any email account. Why MailChimp? Because you'll find out later, MailChimp pretty much allows you to do email campaigns, but it also allows you to do landing pages now, right? So I've used landing page software that was upwards of $200 US a month, right? MailChimp is free. So at the end of today's session, before you leave today, one of you will have a full system from start to finish using completely free tools, except for the phone that you paid a lot of money for, but you're going to shoot the video, right? Empower. Once you've captured somebody's attention and you're engaging them, how do you empower them in terms of conversation, setting up appointments with them, getting through the presentation, engaging them into a transaction, and then getting results out of it, right? So I'm going to show you how we're going to build out a system using this, right? I'm going to show you what I did. I used to work out in Scarborough. Nowadays I live up in Markham. But pretty much when I started in real estate, I registered in Mississauga at a Century 21 brokerage before eventually joining Remax out here. But basically I grew up in Mississauga, so a lot of my contacts here, all that sort of thing was in Mississauga. And I moved out to Scarborough because my wife is from Scarborough, my in-laws, her parents are in Scarborough, so you know what, I'll make the move, I'll go from Mississauga to Scarborough. That meant though that all my business went to nothing, like just back to zero. I had to start completely from scratch. Right? So it wasn't like I inherited a business or everything was just rolling after years of experience. No, I completely started from scratch. And where we lived was near the Scarborough Town Center, where there was a lot of condos, right? And I grew particularly fond of marketing condos, that sort of thing, right? So I created a campaign that looked like this, right? So how did I earn attention? This is an actual flyer that I sent out. And in my market area, there's 6,000 condos. Scarborough Town Center condos, there's 6,000 of them. So here, very simple ad. You don't even see my face on it, right? But it's the message that I wanted to send out to a specific target audience. And who's that target audience? Somebody who lived in a Scarborough condo. Straight up, that's what it is, right? Specifically, somebody who wanted to eventually sell their condo, right? So that was my message. Sell your Scarborough condo faster and for more money. Get your free strategy guide today at www.condosellersguide.com. For those of you who are curious, this website still exists. I don't do, of course, as manager, I don't do as much trading as before, right? But I kept all of my resources up and running. So if you want to actually visit this and see what happens, I actually wrote a book which was about selling condos, right? You can even find it on Amazon if you want to pay for it. If you want it for free, just go to here, right? But how did this work for me? Well, basically, somebody who had received this and wanted to list their condo downloaded my book and read it. So by the time I showed up, I didn't even have a listing presentation because they're pretty much already sold on my services, right? This is the guy who sold the, who wrote the book on selling condos. So I mean, he must know what he's doing, right? So this is what a landing page looks like. And actually, I rebuilt this for MailChimp to show you that you can create a landing page like this using a free tool if you don't want to spend any money. Of course, there's professional landing page software out there that'll cost you a couple hundreds of dollars a month, right? But you can use a free tool like this, right? Now, RICO compliant purposes and all that, Remax and all that stuff goes down here, right? Even if I didn't want to, technically speaking, because I'm an author of this book and maybe I'm not selling my real estate services, I could get away with something like that. But of course, for RICO purposes, you should have compliance, right? Now, a lot of you are prevented from doing actual marketing or advertising because you want to be perfect. You think you're graphic designers, but you're not, right? Let's face it, that's why Design Center and all these things exist, freelance graphic designers, right? Sometimes getting it done doesn't make a difference. You could get hung up after taking this class today. You'd be like, oh, I want a perfect looking landing page. And then you never get something done, and then 2019 October comes and I'm doing the second round of this course and all of you are going to be here again. That's why I asked who was here in October, right? The point is just get it done. We've reached a certain, time period where because of social media, because of transparency, people like real, right? And part of being real is almost being raw. There's no Remax balloons or any of that number one stuff on this. This entire page is talking to the target audience and trying to solve their problem. That's all it is, right? It has nothing to do with, hey, I want to be the one to sell your condo, right? It's just giving them information and value. Now, this was a couple of years ago I did this. If I were to redo this again in today's market, I would be doing video as opposed to a PDF download, right? So when we talk about our example later, I'm going to show you some ideas, but instead of me just giving a PDF about how to sell your condo, I would do a video series now. Maybe 10 videos, right? 1 per day. So for the next 10 days, somebody would be getting a message from me about, you know, tips to sell your condo. It wouldn't be a sales pitch. It'd be like on day 1, I tell them, you know, start decluttering. Day 2, this, day 3, whatever. But at the end of each video, there'd be, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message or ask, right? The result of doing something like this, you know, going from 0 sales of Scarborough condos to several dozens of sales, right? This is just some of the condos that I ended up selling in the Scarborough market area. Now, remember a couple of years ago, condo prices were low, right? Nowadays, like they've almost doubled in terms of price. But every single one of these was attributed to this campaign, right? So building up that credibility, talking to potential target market based on what they needed, right? As opposed to, I mean, look at this. I'm not saying I'm number 1 anywhere. I'm not saying, you know, this is not like bragging, right? Sell your condo faster and for more money is actually a benefit, right? For the person who's looking at this buy, right? And then my tagline was just questions about selling. Once I added, like, I mean, for those of you who are farming and sending out direct mail, once I added the word text to this, I had a significant bump in response. Why? Because most people out there don't want to talk to a real estate agent. They don't want to talk to you, right? So the moment I said, you know, call or text me, majority of the messages actually came in by text. And then, of course, I just engaged them, you know, back and forth communication, and then, you know, set up an appointment. And I'd be able to tell, it's really cool, because on MailChimp, I'd know when somebody downloaded my book. And when I'd go on that appointment, obviously the name of the person downloading the book would be exactly the same as that person. So I already know whether or not they got it. Now, whether or not somebody reads it is besides the point. Like, the book that I wrote was like, what, 20, 30 pages or something like that. It's not that, I mean, that is quite a bit of writing. And for all of you who don't like writing, just do video. It's going to be a lot easier for you. But the point is, whether or not they read or watch your videos, by the time they've interacted with a couple of these pieces of content, they already know, or at least they assume, or have the perception that you know what you're talking about. What do you think? Yeah.
So when you say you would do video, is it like would they log in and say, yes, send me a video, and then you would send them one daily? Or?
Yeah, so I'll talk to you about some, like, BombBomb is good at doing this, but even MailChimp can do something like this, but I'll give you an idea about how to do that. But basically, you take a landing page, somebody would land on it, put in their email address. Like, notice I don't even ask for a name or anything, just email address. I've stripped down basically any reason for somebody not to sign up. Right? You want to give me a fake email address, great, but you're not going to get it. If they'll realize that, they'll come back and say, okay, I got to put a real email address again. Right? There's a whole process with this, and it's really simple tools that we can all use. Right? So today we're going to create a campaign that will help you build and grow a database of potential home sellers in your target neighborhood. So one of the campaigns that this is very effective with, right? And for those of you who are attending Condo Club, this week I'm actually going to be conducting a Condo Club on Friday, and I'm going to be talking about this entire thing and just have to give a practical example about how to attract condo owners for specific buildings. And as a bonus, we'll also talk about selling pre-construction condos or assignments, right? But the whole idea of building a campaign like this is to build and grow a database of potential home sellers in your target neighborhood, right? Because think about it this way, when you're looking at a marketing model where it's, you know, I'm going to send out flyers, I hope somebody calls me and gets a list, and I get a listing out of it. I mean, yes, when I track my farming and all of the stuff that I've done in the past, yes, I did get those calls too, where somebody just called on a flyer and say, hey, list my home, right? But the majority of it is growing that database first, and then constantly communicating to that database and showing them why you are the realtor of choice, and then from that, cultivating the business from it, right? Because again, as we mentioned in the beginning, this is pretty much trying to get everybody's attention, right? You're competing for attention in today's marketplace. And with so many different avenues, including social media, there's a lot of different agents competing, right? So you gotta have a very strong message so that you capture somebody's attention. So do you have the following ready for today? How many of you have registered for a free MailChimp account? Raise your hands again. So who didn't?
I did.
So that I know who not to pick.
I
You
know.
didn't?
But I'm gonna do it on the break. So.
You have? Okay, you have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
From the break. Good. How many of you have an active Facebook business page? Right? So a Facebook business page is necessary in this case, not for the social media aspect of it, but more so for the advertising part of it. And I'm going to share that with you as we build out this model. So here's what we're going to be doing together today. Number one is you're going to identify your digital marketing campaign objectives. So are you trying to reach, a particular homeowner, a particular type of person living in a particular area? Are you identifying, downsizers who are looking to sell their big home and move into condos? Are you looking for out-of-towners who are coming into Toronto? Are you looking for Torontonians looking to move out of town? Are you targeting first-time buyers and perhaps doing a video series about buying your first home? Now, we're going to identify that marketing campaign objective. We're going to create a landing page using MailChimp. So last time I did this in October, it was brilliant. We actually did this whole thing start to finish successfully, and one of the agents walked out with a complete system. Right? So we're actually going to do this, and this is why I asked you to register for MailChimp, because whoever comes up here, you are going to be creating this. I'm not going to be doing anything. I'm not going to touch your computer, right? You're going to be doing this from scratch, and the reason why I want to show it to you is to show you that any one of you can actually do this, right? It is very simple. You're going to create a mailing list with automation. How many of you send monthly reports or monthly market updates, monthly communication to your clients? That's good, right? So you got to keep doing that, but at the same time, there are certain types of communication that you can automate. So for example, if you create a series about buying your first investment condo, right? You should not be, somebody comes to your landing page at 12 o'clock midnight and they send their email address. You shouldn't be typing them any kind of an email whatsoever. You should be in bed, right? And the system should auto-deliver a 5-series marketing campaign. They call it a drip campaign, right? But we're going to talk to you about how to set up in MailChimp a mailing list with automation. And this is how you scale. That's how I got into those big numbers, right? Because if I didn't do that, then every single time somebody would send a request for my book, I'd have to email it manually, right? Which is, funny enough, that's how it started. But I got tired of sending out, messages at crazy hours. Instead, I just automated the whole thing. We're going to shoot a video for your landing page. So whoever comes up here today should be comfortable shooting a video in front of the whole class, right? It's going to eliminate a couple of mistakes. We're going to shoot an actual video for the landing page. And then next, we're going to identify strategies to drive traffic to the landing page. It's a key part of it. Because yeah, it's fun creating these landing pages and shooting a video of yourself and putting it up on the internet. But if you don't actually drive traffic, so what I sent out there are examples of flyers that I've sent, right? That was just one of the ways I was driving traffic to these landing pages. I also did Facebook ads. I also had websites that I linked to it as well. Right, so we're going to identify all of these different things. Okay, let's begin after the break. So we'll take a 10-minute break. Who wants to, we're going to have a draw, I guess. Who wants to be chosen as the one who we're going to be doing this example for?
I don't mind.
Okay, give me your, I guess, business cards if you have business cards. We're going to draw. We're going to have to do a draw. Okay, so if you want to be the one that gets used as the guinea pig for this experiment, give me your business cards. And you have to have a MailChimp account at least by the time the break is done. Okay. No? Yes? No?
I don't know.
No? Anybody? Only 2, so you got a 50-50 chance. Okay, now the odds
I
are...
don't want to, but I want to because I won't do it on my own. I'm certainly impressed.
You don't like to be on
Putting
video?
makeup on to do this.
Anybody else? There's only 5. So 1 in 20 chance, 1 in 5 chance, 20% chance of winning today.
I'm
That's
actually
it?
not comfortable at all, which is
You're not
why
comfortable
I'm
at all?
doing
Which is why you're doing it. You step into the uncomfort zone. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll start at 2 o'clock again.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Let me just turn this off.